Hey guys, it's Mike. I figured I'd try and do something a little bit different with this episode and do kind of a let's cook, as it were, a bit of a how-to. Um, and I'm going to be trying something out, so you may see a little bit more editing in this episode compared to previous episodes because I've only got really the one camera that I'm using. So whenever I want to give like a close-up shot of food or something like that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick it up and bring it over to the camera. So I might just cut out that me bringing it over bit, unless I'm talking in the meantime or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to do Mike's Guide to Cold Weather Steak and Potatoes. Now, obviously, the best way to prepare a steak is on the grill. Some high-quality steaks actually are, you really shouldn't do any other way. It's not good for the meat if you don't prepare it on a grill. Having said that, the grill is not always accessible. During the winter months, when your barbecue is covered in snow, you don't have the option of grilling, and so you got to look at other options. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a ribeye steak and roasted potatoes. Now, I'm going to be doing the steak in the oven, and there's a little bit of a formula when it comes to doing beef in the oven that my dad taught me, and it has proven to be pretty consistently good. Medium rare is my preferred doneness of beef. So for medium rare, the formula is 325 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 minutes plus 15 minutes per pound. So if you've got a 3-pound roast, 3 times 15 is 45 minutes, plus the 15 base is 1 hour at 325. So once again, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 minutes plus 15 minutes per pound. Now you can add an extra 15 to 30 minutes if it's still slightly frozen, or an extra 15 minutes if it's a cheap cut of meat. But for the most part, I don't really deal in cheap cuts of meat, and I make sure that it's fully thawed before I do that. So I ignore that part and just focus on the 15 plus 15 per pound. Now the steak I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to start there, is a ribeye steak. Now, I love ribeye. Ribeye is pretty phenomenal, especially if you're not grilling. Now, the reason I use ribeye is you'll notice there's these textures of fat mixed into or woven into the meat. That's what's called marbling. Marbling is absolutely phenomenal in a steak because what that fat does as you're cooking it, the fat melts and keeps the meat juicy and tender. It's also full of flavor. It's not great if you're trying to keep your figure, which God knows I need to work on, but it's what leads to a really high quality steak. Now, I personally don't like baking meat in a metal container. Unless it's like a roasting rack that has like a metal pan with a rack built into it. So for this particular one, I am going to use a glass Pyrex baking dish. So this particular one is vacuum sealed. You can get it from grocery stores. Now what you may see with the vacuum sealed ones, I'm just going to see, I don't know how well the color is going to translate, is it may not be as rich red of a meat as you may see. That's just a normal part of the vacuum sealing process. When you open it up and you allow it to breathe, the rich red color returns to the meat. So I'm going to do that. While I'm doing that, I mentioned frozen meat, right? Some people say you're not supposed to freeze meat at all, or that it's sacrilegious or a blasphemy or just not good form to freeze meat. In my mind, there's nothing wrong with freezing meat so long as you know what you're doing and you do it right. Obviously, the best is fresh. If you can keep it fresh and do it right away, that's obviously going to be the best. But if you need to, there's nothing wrong with freezing meat. The reason freezing meat is maybe not the best of things is because when you freeze meat, it causes little. Sorry, should have waited until afterwards before starting talking. When you freeze meat, what you're doing is you're causing little ice crystals in the meat. And what that does is, ice obviously expands. And just in the same way ice forming and thawing in the road causes potholes, the same thing happens with meat. Little ice crystals forming and thawing in the steak can cause the bonds in the structure of the meat to weaken. And what that does is that can ruin the texture of the beef. So, what you definitely do not want to do is continually freeze and thaw meat. If you freeze it and then you don't use it, if you freeze it, you thaw it, you don't use it, so you freeze it again, what you're doing is you're amplifying this process. So if you freeze and thaw meat multiple times, you are completely destroying the texture of the beef. It's also why you're not supposed to thaw beef at room temperature. If you're going to thaw it from frozen, do it in the fridge. This is a gentler thawing process, and so it reduces the effects of the thawing process on the texture of the meat. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a cut here because I forgot the Worcestershire sauce in the fridge, which is right behind. Got it. So if you're grilling, obviously, beef is a very strong flavor, and as far as meats are concerned, and so simple is good because it's already a strong flavor. You don't want to just complicate it by throwing all kinds of things into it, right? You want to keep it simple. You want to let the flavor of the beef shine through whatever you do to it. If you're grilling, I'm a fan of just barbecue sauce and nothing else. My personal favorite brand is Bullseye Original, but whatever floats your boat. So just if you're grilling, just Bullseye barbecue sauce or whatever barbecue sauce you want to use, and that's it. Having said that, we're not grilling. What we're doing is we're going to be baking this. So actually, I'm going to get the oven started, preheating. There we are. Because, it's going to take a little while to prepare everything, and the oven can be preheating during this time, just to be time efficient. So, we're not using barbecue sauce because we're not grilling. What I start with Worcestershire sauce. Now, those of you who know me, I come from, my family's half Ukrainian, and perhaps as part of that, but also just my own personal style, I measure by sight. I don't have a set measurement. I look at it and I see that's enough. So as I'm adding things like Worcestershire sauce, herbs and spices, what I might do is I'm going to try and pick up the steak and show it to the camera so you see what I see at every stage. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight as to what I think is enough. Now, I'm a little bit liberal with the Worcestershire sauce. You don't have to put as much as I do on. But I like the flavor. So what I do is I just, drizzle it. Pretty much an even coating across the entire steak, right? Now you put the Worcestershire sauce on first, because if you put the herbs and spices on before the Worcestershire sauce is just going to wash the herbs and spices off of the steak. And that's not what you want. So what I've done is I've just given a nice little basting of Worcestershire sauce. And well, this is going to be fun. Apparently my camera just went into sleep because I hadn't touched it for a little bit. So if you see that, I do apologize. I'm going to try and keep it active. And I'm just going to try and cut out me keeping it active periodically. So I've put the Worcestershire sauce on the steak. Next thing I'm going to do is salt and pepper. By the magic of editing, I have them now. So start with the salt, just a very light sprinkle. And for pepper, I'm a fan of fresh ground pepper. This is a pepper grinder, and I have just whole black peppercorns in here. But again, you want to be very, very light with the pepper, like enough that you can see kind of an even coating, but you don't want to go overboard. You're not trying to crust the meat. Actually, one of the things I really like about, before I get into that, one of the things I really like about this pepper mill is you see there's like a spout here. So what I can do is I can actually just grind like this, and it collects the pepper grounds in here, and then I can just sprinkle as I like. So, by the way, I didn't show you the salt because the salt is really invisible, especially after you put the Worcestershire sauce on. So just, a light sprinkling of pepper. Try and do it, evenly. You don't want big concentrations of pepper across the steak, right? It's just, culinarily, the purpose of pepper is to open the taste buds. What pepper does is it causes the taste buds to open and be more receptive to flavor. So as much as pepper can be an awesome flavor in and of itself, you have to keep that in mind, that its primary job is to lay the groundwork for other flavors. So I don't know how well you can see that, but a light sprinkling of pepper. There you go. So, oops, not centered anymore. So, next one I do is garlic powder. This one you have to be very, very light. With garlic powder, it's very easy to overpower anything. Now, again, half Ukrainian, I like garlic, but you have to know how to use it properly. Too much garlic is not good. Personally, I use McCormick brand herbs and spices. I find them to be just a very high quality, and they come in these nice glass jars with, sprinkling heads, as it were. I don't know if that's the proper term. Sprinkling heads, like that. So, just a light, very, very light sprinkling of garlic powder. Then some rosemary, and this one, again, rosemary is a very strong flavor. So just rosemary. If you don't know what rosemary looks like, it looks a lot like pine needles or what have you. I imagine it comes from the same family. So just like a couple needles spread around. Now, rosemary is one of those herbs which not everybody's a fan of. So if you want to skip the rosemary, go ahead and skip the rosemary. Same thing with the second to last thing I'm doing, and that is basil. This I picked up from my mom. My mom does a lot of cooking with basil, and so I don't know. I put basil on my beef when I'm doing this. So again, very light sprinkling of basil. So after the rosemary, basil, garlic powder, let's try and do it this way so it slides back into the center. That's what the steak kind of looks like. Sliding. The very, very last thing I'm going to put on is, and this one I'm still kind of experimenting with. I like it, but I'm not 100% sold. It makes a huge difference. Leek. Now, part of it is I'm actually going to be using leek with the potato as well. So it's just a kind of a nice, use it all up kind of thing. So for that, use a chef's knife. Kind of got the potato already prepared here. So just do a slice of leek. Leek, by the way, is in the same family as onions and garlic. So when you do a slice, you get a little slice with rings. I don't know how clearly you can see that. But yeah, you can just take the rings off and away you go. So what I like to do is I like to do 3 or 4, depending on the size of the ring. Just kind of spread them evenly on top. This is really more of an accent thing than anything else. I find leek does well in a lot of circumstances. So and just a couple of things will leak like that. Um, Again, it's just kind of like a subtle underlying flavor, not a huge difference maker. The steak is pretty much fully prepared now. It's got all of the Worcestershire sauce, salt, pepper, garlic powder, rosemary, basil, and leek. I just let it sit at this point to breathe, get that color back, but also absorb some of the flavors of the Worcestershire sauce, the herbs and spices, things like that. So we've got this little medallion of leek left over, and we're going to use not all of it, but some of it for the roasted potatoes. Now, I find for myself, what I prefer is baby red potatoes. They're nice, they're small, they're easy to dice into roastable size chunks, and I just like the flavor of red potatoes. I don't know what it is. I really like the flavor of especially yellow flesh red potatoes, baby red potatoes. So I find I like about 6 potatoes of, this size. Um, kind of small pebble, I guess, size. Or I get large pebble, small rock, small stone. So for 6 potatoes around about that size, I'm going to take about four rings of leek. I'm just going to put the rest of the medallion to the side and save it for next time. So what I've got is I've got that much leek. And since I've got it here, I'm just going to take my chef's knife and basically just dice it. The focus here is the potatoes, right? The focus is not the leek. So you can dice the leek very fine. You don't want it to be taking center stage here. It's not steak and leek, it's steak and potatoes. And so you can dice it very, very fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, very carefully, because I've got the potatoes on the cutting board, they're already washed, so I didn't want to do a lot of water noise. So just move those into this bowl I've got here. It's a small bowl. I like it because it's light, and you'll see in a moment, it makes it very easy to toss the roasted potatoes. And you'll see what I mean by that. That beeping says that the oven's preheated. I like that about this oven. It tells me things like that. It's not just, well, maybe I'm done. So for potatoes around about this size, the size that I showed you before, cutting them into 4 pieces is, I find, good. If you prefer larger or smaller, it's entirely your preference, but I find cutting them into 4 pieces cooks properly. So just cut lengthwise down the middle, and then cut each half into half. So lengthwise down the middle, each half into half, you got this lovely yellow flesh in a baby red potato. Just kind of put them in here with the leeks. Really, it doesn't matter which order goes in first. It could be the leeks that go in first, or it could be the potato. Either way, they're all going to get mixed up in a little bit. So I'm just going to cut these up here. So I apologize if I go a little bit silent or ignore you for a little bit. Now, I suppose I should have said this a lot sooner, but remember, kids, knives are dangerous. I have 15 years of experience in Scouts Canada, so I know the value and versatility of a knife. I also know that the safest knife is a sharp knife. A dull knife has resistance, and you try and you have to force it. That causes things to slip or slide, and that's how you get injuries. So a very, very sharp knife is the safest knife, but it's also incredibly dangerous. Um, be comfortable with your knife. Have a knife that has good balance. Um, know how it feels in your hand. Know how it moves. Know what to do with it. It's incredibly important to have high quality knives, in my opinion, which is why I spend a couple $1,000s on a knife set. It's well worth it in my opinion, and I think it's it's something any well-equipped kitchen needs to have. All right, so we've got the potatoes cut up into quarters, and we got the leeks in there as well. So what we do is, like I said, I've got this really nice, light, small bowl. Now what we need to do is we need to prepare them for roasting. Now, the first step is to drizzle them in oil. You can use extra virgin olive oil. I personally prefer peanut oil. The reason I prefer peanut oil is it provides, in my mind, a better texture to the potatoes once they're cooked, but it's also got a higher smoke point. Extra virgin olive oil, if you put it in the oven, smokes at a very low temperature. You're going to get smoke generated in the oven, whereas peanut oil has a higher smoke point. It has to get to a higher temperature before it starts generating a lot of smoke. Now, as far as texture with the potatoes, what I like about it is that it's kind of got compared to extra virgin olive oil, peanut oil creates a thinner layer around the outside of the potato, which is a little bit like crunchy, like the outside of a French fry, and the inside stays soft. So it's got a thinner, crunchy layer and a large, soft inside. I find peanut oil does that for me, whereas extra virgin olive oil creates a much larger, crunchy area and a smaller, softer area on the inside. Now, it's gradiented, so it's not like crunchy hard, but whatever texture works best for you. If you like French fries that have a light outside and like fluffy inside, then go peanut oil. If you prefer something with a little bit more crunch to it, extra virgin olive oil is just fine. So just take peanut oil and give it a bit of a healthy drizzle. I mean, what it is the peanut oil is going to be like a glue for the herbs and spices to the potato. So you don't need a huge amount, but don't be shy with it, right? So my roasted potatoes, I've received a lot of compliments about them, and I kind of joke that it's Mike's 11 special herbs and spices, kind of a play on the KFC Colonel Sanders 11 herbs and spices. I can't remember exactly how many there are, so let's count. And I'll give away my secret recipe now. So first, rosemary. Again, rosemary's kind of a polarizing herb. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. Just a little bit of rosemary. Honestly, I put more rosemary in the potatoes than I put on the steak. Basil, again. That's basil is 2. Oh, right. So that's the potatoes with rosemary and basil. Again, I measure by feel and by sight. So just like, yeah, that's enough, right? Number 3, herb number 3 is dill, dillweed. Now, dill is an accent flavor. You don't need a whole lot of it, just very light amount. Dill doesn't sprinkle easily, so if it looks like I'm shaking a lot, that's just because it doesn't sprinkle very easily. That's with rosemary, basil, and dill. And now this one's a little bit tricky. McCormick has a thing called fine herbs. I'll hold the label up to the camera here. McCormick fine herbs. I just realized the camera might be recording inverse, so if the text is backwards, sorry, I just realized that. Fine herbs, according to the little jar here, Fine herbs is a classic blend of mild herbs. It adds a subtle flavor to omelets, chicken, and fish. Used with potatoes, peas, carrots, cauliflower, tomatoes, and mushrooms. Ingredients: parsley, chives, and tarragon. So I'm not entirely sure what ratio the parsley, chives, and tarragon are, but the fine herbs, just, pretty healthy sprinkle there. As it said, they're very mild herbs, so you may need a little bit more just to have them be noticeable. So that's rosemary, basil, dill, and fine herbs. So we'll say 4, because I can't really claim that is 3, even though it is. Number 5, garlic powder. I love me my garlic. So, sprinkling of garlic. Garlic can be a dominant flavor here. How many times have you seen in restaurants garlic mashed potatoes or something like that? So, not as visible because garlic again has a yellowy color, and then we got yellow flesh mashed potatoes or yellow flesh potatoes. Number 6, coriander. Not entirely sure where I picked up on coriander as something to go there, but again, healthy dose of coriander. It's something you don't have to hold back on. Number 7. Sorry, my bad. Number 7, cumin. Cumin, culinarily, has the same purpose as pepper. It opens the taste buds and allows your taste buds to receive other flavors. So you don't need a lot of cumin. Cumin can very, very easily overpower anything else. So a little bit of cumin. So that's what they look like so far. You can't really see much on the camera, so I'm not showing you as much here because a lot of these spices I'm using now are the same color, are very similar color to the color of the potatoes. I can see them, but on camera it doesn't really show. That's 7, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7. 8, paprika. Paprika, I'll admit, it's mostly for color. The flavor that paprika offers is minimal, but if you don't have red potatoes, it adds a little bit of vibrant dash. So give it a sprinkling of paprika. Think like deviled eggs, right? So that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 herbs and spices, ending in paprika. Number 9, salt. Don't need a whole lot. I mean, God knows in today's society, everybody's trying to say salt kills you, but we have it for a reason. I mean, I don't have anything against salt. So if you care about salt, you don't have to use it, but use it. And then number 10, pepper. Again, fresh ground. And remember that culinarily, pepper and cumin serve the same purpose. We've already put cumin in there, so at a light amount, so you don't need a whole lot of pepper. So that's what the roasted potatoes look like with all the herbs and spices. So I guess it's not quite 11, it's 10. 12 if you count the 3 in the McCormick Fine Herbs. So this is where you get why I have this particular bowl. Because right now, all the herbs and spices are just on top. We haven't mixed it all together. So what you can do is you can just start spinning it. I like it because this one has like a handle here, and I just I wedge my thumb in there, and so that way I've got my pinky finger on the bottom, and I got my thumb on the top. Like this bowl is now basically an extension of my hand, much like a catcher's mitt. It allows me to get a very good control over this bowl. Especially because it's so light. So just spin it around a little bit, flip the potatoes. Ideally what you want to do is you want to make sure that all the sides of the potatoes have the herbs and spices on them. So think about it like you're flipping an omelet or something like that, right? You want to try and flip the potatoes over while you're doing this. what it does is it changes it from a pile of potatoes with a bunch of stuff on top, with a bunch of stuff on it, to a very nice tossed, well evenly coated. It does leave a bunch of stuff on the inside of the bowl, which I'm sure would drive some people nuts, but in my mind, it's a necessary expense to get what I'm going for. Now for this, I do recommend a metal baking sheet. I'm actually not super fond of these baking sheets, and I'd like to get other ones. The reason I'm not fond of this is the way that they've built this bit. So you can see there's a gap here, and they've curled the metal around to the gap here. But the thing is, they haven't curled it a lot. Like it stops right there. So what it is there's like a channel on the inside which traps water. So cleaning these is a bit more of a pain in the butt than I'd like, because the water gets trapped around the edges. So I'm actually looking to get other ones, but good cooking sheets are apparently hard to find. So yeah, just spread evenly. You don't have to worry about distribution. It's not like they have to be an inch apart or anything like that. Just a single layer on the sheet. This is an overly large cooking sheet for the amount of potato I have, but I'm using it because my other two, which are smaller, are in the dishwasher. So it's what I've got, and I wanted to film, so it's what I'm using. So we now have the steak, which has been setting and resting in the open air with the Worcestershire sauce, herbs and spices, and the potatoes, which have been properly coated and tossed and everything like that. So now we put them in the oven. What we're going to do, this steak, as you may have seen when I showed it off to the camera, is a thick cut steak. It's just under a pound in terms of weight. So we're going to cook it for half an hour. Remember, 15 minutes plus 15 minutes per pound. So that's half an hour, which is, as it turns out, the amount of time you need to cook the potatoes. Now, the steak, you put it in, you leave it in for the full half hour. Potatoes, what you want to do is you want to move them around every 10 minutes, because if you leave them still, then you get one side which gets like good browning on it, because it's the side that is on the baking sheet gets browned a little bit, but then the other sides just don't. So you get one side which is like super brown, and the other which are not. So I'm going to put them in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with time lapse. So I'm just going to continue to record while this cooks. I'm going to try and stay in frame as much as possible, but I might, go do something else, grab a drink or something like that. And I'm going to basically time lapse each 10-minute span. To prepare, I've got, a spatula or a turner, something like with a flat. It doesn't have to be something with a flat edge, but I like something with a flat edge to move the potatoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the oven. The steak in the middle of the oven, and the potatoes on the bottom. And we're going to set the timer for 10 minutes. I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. Okay, so the timers are just about to go off, so I figured I'd go back to normal time flow, as it were. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. I'll try and find a good balance of... no, just kidding. There we go. So for this, what matters is the steak. The steak is in for 30 minutes. So when the timer goes off, I just restart the timer right away. I don't wait until the potatoes go back in. So just what I usually do is I just push them to one side of the pan, um, pull them to the other side, just to make sure that none aren't accidentally stuck. Give it a bit of a shake to spread them back out. Enough of them turn over in that effort that I can just put them back in the oven and wait for the next 10-minute timer to end. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, so the timer's about to go off again. Pretty much same procedure as before. Right now we're about a minute away. Just, take it, move the potatoes around a little bit. This is usually the point where I start seeing the real browning. The first one, they've only been in for 10 minutes, so they haven't really had a chance to brown. This one, the potatoes are going to really start browning. This one, sometimes I like to just move them around just to make sure that one side doesn't get too brown compared to the others. By the way, while I'm waiting for the timer to actually go off, I will say I am sorry if the lighting is a little bit terrible because the lighting's like actually between me and the camera, which is not what you want from a filmmaker's perspective. But also, I was up at 4 o'clock this morning, so I apologize if I come across as tired or just don't look all that good. Ooh, excuse me. Or if I just don't look all that good. All right. Basically, same as before. Just set the timer for 10 minutes. Move them around. Pop them back in. So usually at around about this stage, I like to get a plate ready because next time the timer goes off, it's going to be ready. So just have that ready on the side, ready and waiting. And I'll see you guys in another 10 minutes. All right. So the last 10-minute timer is about to end, and the meal's pretty much going to be ready. I know it's not heavy on the veggies. Some of you will like that. Some of you won't. I know. Bad mic. So I just want to kind of address one last thing before we kind of finish up here and we get to the actual finished product, and that is, how did I come to this particular combination of herbs and spices? Honestly, it's mostly guess and check, right? Um, and we're done. There we go. When it comes to foodstuffs and things like herbs and spices, honestly, scent is a very powerful tool. You don't have to taste something to get an idea of what it's like. I think the statistic is something along the lines of 90% of taste is scent. I don't think it's quite 90%, but it's up there. And so, if you smell something, that'll give you a good idea of what it tastes like. It sounds really weird, but it tastes like it smells. This is true of herbs and spices. It's also true of things like beers or wines or things like that. So to give you an idea, since I've got it up here, that's what the potatoes kind of look like. They're hot. And that's what the steak ends up looking like. So the steak, oof. let's do this. Just so I'm not burning myself. So that's what the steak ends up looking like. It's not quite as appetizing as if you saw it straight off of the grill, but in the end, the flavor is what matters, right? So the flavor is there. I'm just going to turn the oven off. Let me plate the meal, as it were. Be all professional chef and whatnot. Not. Don't ever think I'm anywhere close to a professional chef. So, steak onto plate. Roasted potatoes onto plate. The potatoes are very hot straight out of the oven. I usually recommend giving them a minute or two to cool before actually popping them in your mouth. Same thing with the steak, but to a lesser extent. So if I grab knife and fork, when all is said and done, I have steak and potatoes. It's quite a nice meal. Not the most robust, but good flavor. Sorry, not the most. It's not that it's not the most robust. It's not your most balanced dinner. But it's a good, solid dinner. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this open so you can see what the inside of the steak looks like. I'm just going to cut it straight in half. Oh yeah, that looks gorgeous. So I'm just going to turn it towards the edge of the plate, so when I turn it towards the camera, you can see it a bit better. I've just taken the leek rings and put them off to the side. So as you can see, nice pink. Actually, I don't know if it carries through all that well. Nice pink inside. What you'll see more with a grill is you see how the brown layer at the top is very thin and doesn't gradiate much. With a grill, you'll see much better penetration than that. Penetration. Anyway, I'm sure after I'm edited, this is going to be much, much longer. So I'm just going to stop it there. Bon appetit. If you like that, please try it. If you want to get me to clarify some things, something that you want to try it, but you may not have understood the way I explained something, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.